Are you manually making groups to store your alt mixes and stems in Disco? Well, today we're going to check out the nested feature, which is going to change all of that and blow your mind at how professional and organized you can make your track management with Disco nested feature. Let's dive in. Maybe you've heard of the nested feature in Disco, maybe you haven't. Well, if you haven't heard, let's cover that real quickly. The nested feature in Disco allows you to store alt mixes, instrumentals, a cappella, cut downs, and stems underneath your main track. And this is particularly useful if you work in a section of the music industry called sync licensing. All right, let's take a look at Disco to see what nesting looks like. I already have one track set up with nesting, and we're going to do another one live today in the video. And the one I've already set up, so you can see that there is a number 5, and I believe Disco calls that a badge counter on the main track. Right. And so what that tells you is how many tracks that are being counted underneath the primary track. And you can see this primary track is called Eye of the Night. And if you expand the 5, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and the stems counts as 5. And you're wondering, well, there's a bunch of stems underneath the stem section. Well, that's true, but if you go back to the support page and you scroll to the bottom, each nested version will count as one track against your quota, and you can have a maximum of 20 nested versions per main track, which is right here. And this is the really great part that I love that Disco really thought about this in terms of a music perspective to really help us out. It says that stems are counted differently, right? One set of stems per main track will count as one track on your track quota. And there's a limit, of course, of how many stems you can have per main track. And they say you can have 100 stems per main track. And so that's why it counts as stems is 1, and then the alt mixes 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's greatly appreciated. So we'll take a look at this one where the nesting is already set up. And to access the nesting, kind of highlight over the track you want to manage the nesting, and then you click on these dots that are vertical, and this is how you get into the menu. And then you go to Manage, Nesting. All right, and you can see here there's different sections. There's the main track, which is labeled as main. And then you have all these different alt mixes, which easily are labeled by clicking on the tag selection here. And I love how easy they make this. And so obviously mix. I didn't really see another option that would match up with alternative mixes or alt mixes other than just mix. You could put other, but that's not very descriptive. So I'm just calling all these mixes because whatever label that you use other than stem, it's going to count as one of your tracks on the track quota. And remember, you have 20 you can do. So I'm only using the 4 here plus the main track. And then once you label a stem with the stem tag, right there at the bottom, it drops down to the stem section, which you can collapse. It's very, very important that you label your stems as a stem so it doesn't count against your track quota when you don't want it to. All right, so we're gonna get out of that, and we're gonna work on the stems and the alt mixes for the next one. So this is what it looks like when you don't have any tracks in there. Shows you the main track, And then you need to go over and grab your tracks. So we're just going to start with the alt mixes for track 2. I'm going to grab these and I'm going to drag them in to this section here. And it takes a couple minutes for it to upload. All right, once they've uploaded, they'll be immediately placed under the main track, and there's nothing selected on the label, so it kind of gives you an indication by saying select a version. And so we can click the drop down on mix, and we'll do that for each one of these. All right, and let's go ahead and just save since we got that in there. And then we're going to go back. You can see 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5. And let's go back into the nesting feature. Now let's grab the stems. All right, this one I have a total of 9 stems I'm dropping in. And that's going to take a few minutes for them to upload. All right, now the stems have been uploaded and they're going to have the tags unselected. It's going to say select version. And you can see it does mix it in with the other mixes, but that's not a big deal because once you select the tab, it's going to drop it down to the stem section. One thing I wish that Disco would fix is that when you drag it into this lower stem area, it would already put them as a stem because you selected to drag them into this other field right here instead of the top field. So maybe they'll change that. Maybe I'll put in a feature request or something like that. All right, so let's go ahead and identify the stems. You can see that's why I put the word stem in the title along with the type of instrument. So it's easily identified as a stem, so there's no question when I'm going through and working with the different files. So let's select the tag, and we're going to select stem. You can see it dropped it down into the stem section. And so we're just going to repeat this for all the tracks that say stem in the name. I'm going to just go back through and make sure that there's only 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you can reorganize these by grabbing, left-click grabbing and holding, and you can move the different mixes around in whatever order you like. I like to do the underscore right underneath the main track because the underscore is all the instruments except the melodic lines. Right. And I do like I have a special order of the. All right, so that's well organized. And then of course, once you're done, you want to press save. All right, so that is a total of 6 on this one. We'll count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the stem group is 6. So what the article stated was absolutely 100% correct. Stems count as 1 set of stems per main track will count as 1 track towards your quota. And remember, you can have a maximum of 20 nested versions per main track. And on this one, it's a total of 6 and then 5. All right, now this is a great way to present your tracks in a very professional way. And you're probably wondering, what does it look like on the web page? Well, let's take a look. And these sections are collapsible, versions, and stems. But you see how nice and clean and professional and organized everything looks. Now, if you notice that all the versions, alt mixes, and all the stems are all 2 minutes exactly. Working in sync licensing, you want to make sure that everything is the exact same length. So when somebody downloads these to work with them, they can line them all up to 0 and everything matches perfectly. One more thing we should talk about is to make sure that the stems show up on the album page. For example, we'll go over to the album, we'll open up the album page. You see how the stems are listed. The stems and the alt mixes are listed here underneath each track. Well, that doesn't happen by default. Once you're in the playlist or album settings, which are pretty much the same thing, you want to make sure you include the nested track versions by clicking this button. And you can see here's a little informational button. If checked, nested track versions will be accessible from the playlist share page. Whether it's an album or a playlist, this section looks the same until you go to the presentation side. Then you have your default playlist, an artist page, or an album page. And one of the main differences is the album page allows you to include the artwork, and you can include the banner for the web page. So we'll save the playlist, which pulls it out of the right-hand playlist creator section. And so you have your banner art, then you have your artwork again, and you can say list your contact information. But the most important thing that we selected was including the nested tracks on this playlist/album page. So that's how you work with Disco nested tracks. And you can see it's an easy way to create a very professional web page to present your music to music supervisors, sync agents, and whomever else you want to share it with. Also, you can see the waveform to make it very easy to show the dynamic range of your track, and whoever you send it to can easily add it to their Disco account so they can manage it in the way that they need to, which will ultimately help them find your music. Also, whoever you send this to can easily add it to their Disco account by using the option at the top of the web page and importing it into their Disco account. Because after all, making it as easy as possible for someone to interact with your music in a very streamlined and professional way will ultimately help you get more placements. Thanks for watching and hanging out with me today for this video of Disco nested tracks. If you like this video, appreciate you click the like button and share, and also continue your journey. Check out this next video.